The new Robert H. Jackson Center in Jamestown has perked up interest in the Frewsburg native. Much is made of Jackson's service as U.S. Attorney General on the U.S. Supreme Court and as chief prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials. Maybe not so well known is his role in making Jamestown a sounding board for the New Deal. How did Jamestown get that way? Well, Franklin Roosevelt was governor of New York before he was president of the United States. Governor Roosevelt campaigned in Jamestown. He visited Jamestown as governor. His wife, the always on-the-move Eleanor, stopped here and at Chautauqua even more often. According to Eugene Gerhart in America's Advocate, his book on Jackson, Robert Jackson was named to the commission to investigate the administration of justice in New York State. That brought him in close touch with leaders of the bar, and more importantly, with Governor Roosevelt. When Roosevelt went to Washington, he was ready to welcome Bob Jackson aboard the New Deal Express. Treasury Secretary Henry Morgenthau interviewed the Jamestown lawyer for a job as General Counsel for the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Gerhart says Jackson didn't want to go. He was settled here and he liked it here. Urged on by his friends, John Wright and Ernest Cawcroft, he finally said yes. The rest is history. He became Solicitor General, Attorney General, a Justice of the Supreme Court, and was tapped by President Truman to preside at Nuremberg. One of F.D.R.'s biographers reported Roosevelt used to summon Jackson to the Oval Office. Remember, Jamestown was not just a dot on the map to F.D.R. He knew Jamestown, and he knew Jackson. Well, Bob, he would say, what are they saying about this policy or that in Jamestown? Jackson would tell him. How things played in Jamestown became a factor, though of course one of many, in determining F.D.R.'s programs for the innovative New Deal that was to change the shape of America. I've been going over the life and times of my late father-in-law, Leslie Price, and his interest in the world around him. Les was a rock-ribbed Republican. He was elected county treasurer as a Republican. He supported innumerable GOP causes. Yet he was willing to make exceptions. One was in the case of Robert H. Jackson. When F.D.R. nominated Jackson to be chief counsel for the Internal Revenue Service, Jackson got Les's enthusiastic support. A senator, James Couzens, Republican of Michigan, suggested Jackson might be a fine attorney in Jamestown, NY, but he questioned if he was qualified to be the legal voice of the IRS. Leslie saw red. He fired off a letter to Senator Couzens pointing out Jamestown in 1930 had a bigger population than Manhattan in 1790, yet the new republic had no difficulty in coming up with responsible leaders. He also noted 58 of the 96 U.S. senators came from places smaller than Jamestown. Couzens replied defending his position, and back went a letter to Washington. Even though I may be dense, Les declared, I believe I have plenty of company in contending your position is unfair to 45,000 Jamestowners and to millions of faithful Americans who live in small communities. Warming to his task, Les suggested if Couzens' position reflects that of Republicans as a whole, no wonder the New Deal came to power and has enjoyed apparent success. Les sent a copy of the letter to Jackson. The future justice and Nuremberg prosecutor was inclined to think the senator meant no reflection on Jamestown, but he wrote, quote, "Needless to say, I share the viewpoint you express." Years later, when Les wrote to congratulate Jackson on his appointment to the Supreme Court, Jackson sent him a Dear Les letter in which he said, quote, "The confidence of friends is a renewed inspiration and encouragement for the task."